Alright guys, my name is Metagoblin and today I'm going to be giving you a rogue leveling guide for classic World of Warcraft. I'm going to split this guide into 6 sections. First we will go through the essentials and the frequently asked questions. What weapons do you use, what poisons do you use, etc. Then I will give you the optimal order for your talent build. Then as always we'll have the how to kill mobs fast section where I'll go through the optimal DPS rotation and a number of playstyle tips. Then it's gear and stats. Fifthly, we'll have a weapon progression guide, and lastly I will finish off with a list of key spells that you need to be upgrading as you level up and the ones that you can skip. But before finishing, we will give you some general advice on how to save money for your mount. An experienced vanilla rogue player has helped me out with this video. His name is BigDawg. He's a cool guy that I know personally from Boxing Society, from university. He's soon going to be releasing a lot more content. He's got a big rogue PvP video coming soon, so go check out the trailer on his channel. And just before I jump in, also please do give me a quick follow on Twitch, because when Classic WoW launches I will be streaming a lot more over there. So anyway, let's jump into the video. So firstly, let's go through the frequently asked questions that people ask who are new to the rogue class. The first being is, what weapon should I use? The first answer I would give to this question would be whatever weapon you know will provide the most DPS, but the best option, ideally in a perfect world, would be a slow one-handed sword in your main hand and a fast sword in your offhand. That would be the perfect combo, but generally it is better to go with the highest DPS option. What is essential though is having the slow and fast balance between your weapons. You want a slow main hand because your Sinister Strike damage deals damage based on the maximum damage number of your weapon, plus a little bit more. So let's give an example. Let's compare the Diamond Hammer against the Black Fang Dagger. The maximum damage for the Diamond Hammer is 53, whereas the maximum damage number for Black Fang is 32. This means if you have the Diamond Hammer in your main hand, a rank 3 Sinister Strike will do 63 damage, but with the Black Fang Dagger equipped, it will only do 42 damage. So this is why you always go for a slow main hand weapon, because your abilities are based on your main hand highest damage number, and not both weapons combined like a Fury Warrior. We may also be asking, why do you use a fast offhand? The main goal with your offhand should be to get the highest DPS weapon you can find, but ideally you want it to be a fast weapon so that you can use your offhand to quickly apply your poisons, and even more ideally you want it to be a fast sword, since once you get the sword specialization, your offhand can still proc the talent, and when it does, it gives you basically an extra main hand swing. But before you get the sword spec, just pick the highest DPS weapon you can find, which might be a dagger, a mace, or something like that. A finishing note though, guys, is to experiment. Mix your weapons around a little bit. Just experiment with what provides the most DPS for you. Get yourself a DPS meter add-on to validate your tests if you're unsure. You might have sword spec, but you might also find an awesome slow mace, so it's up to you to test which gives you the most DPS, but generally raw damage counts more to your DPS than talent and stats. The second big question people are going to ask is, what poison should I put on my weapon? The simple answer is instant poison on both weapons. It provides the most DPS in a small time window, whereas deadly poison is better for longer fights like raid bosses and dungeon bosses. However, there is a unique situation where you may want to put crippling poison on your main hand weapon, but we'll talk about that a little bit more in the rotation section. Alright guys, so I'm going to quickly go through the talents now. Do bear in mind that this part of the video is just intended to show you the order of the talents. I will do a deeper dive into talents in a later video. I just don't want to spend an incredible amount of time on it. So, and I am aware that there are other builds which are more favoured towards PvP survivability and things like that. This is probably one of the most popular specs that people are going to use, and it just gets things killed quickly. That's the main reason why we go for this build. So you're going to open with remorseless attacks, but we're not going to stay in assassination. Basically, we use a remorseless attacks because you just get, it's just a really good opener, really good damage opener. Improved Sinister Strike, this is your most usability, so that massively increases your DPS. And then from here you can get Improved Gouge, makes it easy to get a bandage off. From here you definitely want to prioritise getting extra hit chance on your weapons. Then you're going to get Deflection. The main reason why we get Deflection is for that mitigation to reduce the damage taken, but also because of Riposte, because Riposte does a serious amount of damage. It's a really useful ability actually, because it also disarms the target, which again further reduces damage on the target. You're going to get 4 points as your dual wield spec, and as soon as Blade Flurry becomes available, I would get that straight away, because then you can start doing cleave damage and taking more than one mob down at once, which massively speeds up your leveling time. Here you're going to finish off dual wield spec, spec 3 points into sword spec, and then immediately again, you know, get this hit chance. Increased weapon skill basically means more hit chance. You will be taking down mobs which might be a little bit higher level than you, and you want that extra hit chance. Then you finish off sword spec, you get 1 point on aggression, and then adrenaline rush. And then you may want to finish off aggression. Most people do because, you know, you are using Sinister Strike most of the time. From here, you can either spec straight away into malice, or you can spec into something a little bit more guaranteed damage. You can get 3 points in eviscerate. Basically, this means that you might not have to stack as many combo points to finish off a target because your eviscerate does a little bit more damage. From here, most people are just going to stack malice full to get this extra lethality damage. And then from here, you've got 3 points left. I mean, you can either stack out some extra poison damage, or you can stack out 2% extra damage to humanoid, giant, beast, and dragonkin, and then just finish off there, really. That's probably the build that most people are going to use. I mean, and that's pretty much your, you know, bread and butter. I mean, this build is really optimized for doing the most amount of damage in a small time window. It doesn't really bear in mind things like defensibility and PvP, so do take note of that. There are different builds which favour more PvP. So, for our third section, we're going to go through DPS, optimal rotations, all that kind of thing. But before I give you the rotation, there is an important lesson to be learned when it comes to rogue DPS, and that is attack clipping. Okay, basically when your sword spec procs, your swing timer is reset, so it's very easy to clip your own basic attack with a special ability like Sinister Strike. When I say clip, I basically mean waste or delay the auto attack. You want the auto attack damage to happen, and you want it to be happening regularly. But this is something you can easily avoid by getting a swing timer add-on, and make sure you only use special attacks straight after your main hand swing. So your rotation depends primarily on the health of the target. Normally you're going to be using 5 Sinister Strikes, perfectly timed Sinister Strikes, so that your basic attacks, swings don't, you know, they kind of fit snugly in between the Sinister Strikes, and then you eviscerate the target to finish off the enemy at about 25% remaining health. But that might be, you know, 4 Sinister Strikes if the target is a little lower level. Obviously you can use riposte on cooldown since the damage is awesome, but again be careful not to clip your auto attack. Use Blade Flurry on cooldown and use it to take down 2 mobs at once. And again use Adrenaline Rush on cooldown as well. You probably want to save Adrenaline Rush for when you're taking down like 3 mobs or something. There is an alternative method that you might want to take into consideration, but it's more an advanced tactic. That is, it's similar to Earthbind Kiting and Hamstring Kiting, where you basically put Crippling Poison on your main hand and you strafe to kite the mobs between your energy regenerating enough for Sinister Strike. So it's basically the same principle as Hamstring Kiting and Earthbind Kiting, so that is something to bear in mind. The reason we skip Slice and Dice is because fights are normally too short for it to be useful, and it will reduce your burst DPS. It should only be used for longer fights, but personally I wouldn't even rank up the ability in the first place until about endgame. Obviously there is the option for a stealth opener, which can be useful to take down a difficult elite mob or in a situation where you need to take down multiple mobs. The idea will be to use as much CC as possible, you know, opening with cheap shot and using a gouge or a blind and an off target, you know, that kind of thing. You can also use gouge to incapacitate a target to allow you to use a bandage. That's a good trick. It's also a very fast ability for tagging mobs, probably the fastest tagging melee ability in the game. And evasion is obviously another good defensive ability to use when taking down more than one mob. Now let's run through gear. You have 2 options as a rogue. You can stack agility for slightly higher damage and more mitigation through dodge chance, although even stacking agility really high will probably only shave off a second or 2 of mob killing time, and you would have to be really lucky with blue gear to stack your stats high by farming dungeons, and farming dungeons will just slow you down. Alternatively, what you can do is stack spirit and stamina gear, which will massively reduce your downtime between mobs, especially as you can stealth and just camp a mob waiting for your health to come back. Always remember to sit down to regenerate your health a little bit faster. For my weapon progression section, I'm going to list easier to obtain options that you can obtain through questing, about farming dungeons over and over and just relying on luck. There will be alliance and horde options, and the list will be split into sections. I also avoided long quest chains and group quests where I could. So lastly, let me go through some key spells that you need to learn, and then I'll finish off with some general tips to save up money for your mount. So, the key spells are Sinister Strike, Eviscerate, Stealth, Sprint, Kick, Vanish, Cheap Shot, Sap, Blind, Safe Fall, Kidney, Pickpocket, Detect and Disarm Traps, and Evasion. I'd also recommend leveling up your lockpicking and poison making, right, because that's going to be useful pretty much straight away. So here are my general tips for saving up for the mount. First, get skinning and then vendor the leather, and if you're going to level up leather working, again, craft some pieces with leather working and sell them. You can also get tailoring, and then you can ditch it later on. Basically, you want to get tailoring to make your bags quickly, because more bags means you can generate more money and sell the crafted gear pieces as well. Alternatively, you can make friends of a tailor just to get the bags very quickly. You want to get them as early as possible. And number 4, first aid. The reason why we get first aid is because you'll be buying less food. Do cooking to make your food for yourself. You know, you're going to be running around finding a lot of meat, you may as well cook it. And if you don't want to cook it, you can just vendor the cooked meat. My 6th tip is just simply to stop buying food, you know, stack with spirit, start like I recommended earlier, or simply just ask a mage, you know, be a bit cheeky and ask a mage, see if he can give you a little bit of food, or, well, not water, just food, isn't it? Also, check the quest item money reward. You might need an add-on for that. Always check the most expensive and then sell the most expensive option. Lastly, quickly make a bank haul, because you might come across items in the world which you know will sell better on the auction house because the vendor value is terrible, or there is simply no vendor value. So quickly send them over to your bank haul, and you can just leave them in the bank for up to about 30 days. You don't need to keep logging your bank haul all the time, just leave it in the post until you've got your character leveled up. But obviously the loot will delete after 30 days, so be mindful of that. Anyway, that is the end of the guide. My name is Metagoblin. Until my next video, ciao.